Hey folks, my name's Kevin and it's time for a little bit more knife nerdery. Today we've got another unboxing from the Apex Passaround group. And the funny thing is, I still have these from the last time. Now David, aka Blade Banter, who runs this group, he works pretty hard to figure out the logistics of what order these knives go around, in part to make it fair about who gets what first and etc. But in part also to avoid this happening, to try and make it so people don't get doubled up like this. But because of some shipping stuff that happened outside of his control earlier on, I got these both at basically the exact same time. Now that's actually kind of fitting because what's in here is actually another version of this knife. That's the other thing, is that normally he tries to make it so you don't get two knives at once, but these are both sets of two because WE Civivi wanted to send these out in groups like that. And so I actually ended up with 4 knives at the exact same time, which is honestly a pretty freaking cool problem to have, but we'll see. I also originally signed up for a different version of what's in here, and it was going to come with a different knife, the Elijah Isham Lazar, but instead I swapped to the G10 version you'll see in a moment, and that does come with a different version of this Civivi, so we'll be able to look at those side by side. So let's take a look and see what we got going. So let's take care of this Civivi first, because the Civivi is going to be a different version of this. This one is the version that has this. Is this what do they call it exactly? Yeah. So is that going to focus? There we go. It's this clear resin shred carbon fiber thing they're doing. And the version here is silver and the version here is gold. And what it means, they're talking about these little flakes of what might, I don't know, I doubt it's silver, but it's some kind of silver colored material. And it is 3-dimensionally in here. Let's see if I can get this to zoom in and get that depth. So you can actually see the depth, and these things are suspended in there. So in addition to the regular carbon fiber shreds, there's this clear resin. And honestly, it's a really cool effect. I said in the unboxing of this that I didn't like the end up feel of it because it kind of feels plasticky, but it looks neat. And I do like the way these are contoured. So let's see what this version is like. The packaging should all be the same. Indeed it is. But ooh, yeah. Okay, so now we have these side by side. How cool is that? That wasn't going to happen normally. Flick. Same snappy action. How similar are these blades? I don't know. That looks pretty nice. One thing I thought was really cool is on this spec sheet, they're saying that this Damascus style blade, whatever it is made out of, they don't say the material, what the alloys are, but they do say that it's 58 to 60 HRC, which is pretty high HRC for any of the things I was expecting to be in here, something kind of like in a 9CR direction. So this probably will have good edge retention. What is my feeling about that? You know, honestly, so I was gonna say that I was expecting to like this one better because I don't normally go for gold, yellow tone metals. Just in my personal life, I tend to go for nickel over bronze, that kind of stuff. But this just pops so much more. Look at that. Yeah, wow, these really are cool looking. I said in my unboxing for this that this is not a knife I would buy, and I still very much feel that way. The types of knives I go for tend to be really minimal, clean lines and whatnot. But for someone that wants this kind of swirly look, I think it's just really amazing that you can get this and experience this kind of Damascus and carbon fibery shed stuff at such an affordable price point. Yeah, that just blows my mind. So if you're someone that wishes that you could get, you know, $1,000 custom made in some kind of fancy swirly nickels Damascus and some kind of fat carbon thing, but you only have got, I don't know how much these cost, 50, 60 bucks, something like that to spend. It's bonkers that this is an option. I've owned a couple of Elementums, and I will say there's been a little bit of variance on how snappy they are. They're mostly good, but I've had a couple of duds. These are both very, very snappy, which is what people say they normally expect. And so I'm coming to trust that I just got like a lemon or two, because the majority I've felt definitely have this snappy quality. However, these are both contoured in a way that they're not normally done. A standard Elementum has these flat slab scales, and in hand, it's interesting because like, I like how slim this is in my pocket, but it just feels kind of like a normal knife. And this, because of that contouring, definitely feels nicer in your hand. That's just, yeah, that feels good. I still don't like the way that this feels plasticky, but the shape of this feels great. You'll also notice that these Damascus versions are in the thicker blade stock. The standard D2 version is in 0.12 blade stock, which is not thick, but it's just thicker than these S35VN versions. Where does it say that? Yeah, S35VN versions are in 0.1 blade stock. And so these are in the thicker version. So between the two, yeah, this is going to cut better. This is just thinner blade stock, and the way geometry works means it's going to slice better. But the hollow grind that Civivi does on these is really, really good. And so these are not going to be chonky, wedgy knives by any means. A hollow grind on 0.12 blade stock is still super slicey, and that's pretty amazing. On some really high-end Damascuses, you'll have them polish the final product after they do the etching or whatever they do to oxidize the one layer, not the other. And so you can get Damascuses that have a uniform thin feel, but it's common to be able to feel the kind of ridges here, and you can on this. And yeah, I don't know, like from a reducing all traction whatsoever kind of standing, I suppose this is worse, is going to add more friction, but this isn't the kind of thing that I think is going to impact your ability to slice in any way. It's honestly a little bit neat. Like, I'm the kind of person that finds it kind of fun to be able to feel those edges. But, you know, to each their own. How these both have perfect centering. And I don't know. So it's one of those things where, like, this is an Elementum. And Elementums are a little bit boring these days because they're just kind of blob shaped and they just are really reliable generic knives. And so having all of this add-on, again, is aesthetically not the kind of thing I would do, but it is a pretty cool way of adding some kind of excitement and flair to an otherwise a little bit vanilla knife. I've recommended the Elementum to so many people because that vanilla aspect means it's approachable to folks, and it also means that it's just like, it's a good, reliable, but not terribly exciting knife. And so maybe this makes it a little bit more exciting for you. Okay, so let's move on to the next knife. Okay, what we have in here is, this is the real reason I wanted to check this out, because I think this is pretty darn cool. What is going on? Oh, right, this was sent to me by Shoe Monster EDZ. He's part of the Passaround group, and he's the one who sent this my way. What we have next is the WE Eidolon. And this is the version in black G10, and it does also come in a couple variants, so we'll talk about that. I did originally sign up for the carbon fiber variant of this, but there's a whole bunch of people on that, and so to help David balance those lists the way I was talking about, I switched over to this version. So this, ooh, yeah, this is a me knife. That other one wasn't a me knife. This is a me knife. This, I hope you can tell immediately, is a Justin Lundquist design. This is kind of quintessentially Lundquistian, and he's one of those people. I bet he and Ray Laconico get along. They both have this just really clean lines, minimalist look. Or maybe they're arch nemesis. Maybe they like view each other as rivals or something, but oof. So I love Justin Lundquist's design because I do really lean into that, like, just clean, sleek, gentleman's carry aesthetic, but look at that. That's the real reason I wanted to check this out. Both in the carbon fiber and G10 versions, this is an integral knife. So this is a single piece of G10 that has been milled out to allow them to insert the hardware to make this a flipper. But what's crazy is that this is a liner lock, and most integrals that you see are frame locks. So for this, they had to attach a liner inside without any way to affix it from the outside. So how are they doing that? This is also a top flipper, and so I'm really curious to see how that works. Ooh, ooh, that worked really nice. Look at all this. There's that Lundquist logo. So this knife is also available in a spear point blade. And that one is slightly differently shaped. It's symmetric. It's not sharp on both sides. Hey, someone is knocking my door. I'm gonna come right back to this. And I'm back. That was the FedEx person delivering yet another knife because of what I'm like as a person. Anyway, this is that, ooh, that works really nicely. This is that Justin Lundquist design, and I was saying that it also comes in a spear point, and the spear point is not sharp on both sides. It's just a one-sided spear point, and a dagger point, I don't know what you call that. And of the two, this one is way more my style. I'm just not a double daggery looking type person. Oh. Okay, so part of the reason I wanted to check this out is because of this knife. Now, this one's by WE and this one's by Civivi, and those are the same company, yeah. But they both have this kind of traction-only top flipper design. And my experience so far with this one is that it works fine, but it's not the easiest thing in the world. I find that it works pretty well for this type of thumb version, but I find that it's not my favorite for this. You have to, these types of top flippers rely entirely on traction. They don't let you use leverage to push over. You're just using the grip of your finger against this top part here in order to pull it over. And so I find this one works a little bit, it's a little bit hard, it's a little bit rough on my finger. And already I'm seeing this is so much easier. Yeah, this is so easy to use. What is going on? So part of it is that this is really light. You know, that's probably it. Over here, there is no liner like that. So it's these detent balls, and there's this kind of traction the entire way from two different detent balls running against the blade like that. And so there's just more friction here. This is nowhere near as light. And so it requires more pressure to get this over. This is a reasonably light liner lock right there. And this is, this is not a lot of pressure coming down in. And so as a result, it requires very little pressure to make that. Oh, that just works so well. I've used a number of these top flippery type designs. You'll find those also on peñas, and it's obviously not quite the same thing, but the concept is the same in the sense that you are using basically friction only to pull over. And I gotta say, this is one of the best I've felt of that. That just feels so good. And it's so easy to do. This design itself, you probably, again, I was saying it's a Justin Lundquist design, but I'm sure if you've noticed, if you've seen the Feist or honestly any knife that he makes, not all, but a lot, or like that Baby Barlow, that collab that he did with Urban EDC, there's definitely a lot of commonality. This is effectively a Barlow handle shape, which is kind of like a straight edges, but flaring slightly as it goes back. The other reason why I want to mention that is because it works the exact same way. It has the same kind of top flipper with the just the little bit sticking out in the middle. And the other thing is it has the same kind of clip, and this clip is really cool. So this is interesting because this is a milled tie deep carry clip, but not in the way that I went all crazy about on that IQ. Let me pull that out real quick. So on the quiet carry IQ, I went bonkers about this clip in my my small details review on this, because this is a milled tie clip. That means that it is milled on this dimension as well as that dimension, so that they can get this to be a loop over style that attaches on the inside. And the reason why this is so cool is because you get the deep carry that you would want, but you also have this flat surface here. That means there's no jabby bit at the end for you to feel. Now this is a milled tie clip. You can see this isn't just a single piece of metal that's been bent around. And so that part is really neat, but I'm pretty sure the way that this is made is that it's milled in this direction only out of a piece of material that's this thick, or that gets finished this thick. And as a result, it's milled just in this dimension, and they aren't milling it in this dimension to get this part. I could be wrong about that. I have no idea how this is actually made. That's just my intuition. So the result is that you get this neat, fits the design really nice look, but you unfortunately don't get that flat surface here, and you do get this little point. Let me see if I can feel that in my hand. Yeah, no, I mean, you do feel it for sure, but it's really, really minor. It's such a small clip that that's not a hotspot contender. I do wonder if it has enough ramp, or if it's going to get caught on pants. But aesthetically, I really like it. And again, as I mentioned, the Baby Barlow that he did with Urban EDC Supply has effectively this exact same clip, if I remember correctly. So let's keep going. The way that they have to attach this liner in here is really kind of nuts. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get light in here. And maybe if I zoom in, what are the odds you'll be able to see in here? Maybe if I turn it this way? Kinda. Okay. So there are screws right there and down here that are attaching this from the inside. And what that means is, to assemble this knife, they effectively, or if you were to try and disassemble this knife, they effectively have to use an L-shaped like hex wrench kind of style thing. Like, you'll get those if you're assembling like flat pack furniture from IKEA or something. That kind of L-shaped Allen key. But they're going to be using this with presumably Torx bits, and having to kind of wedge it, like go in and do tiny little rotations at a time and work inside the knife. And I would imagine that's going to make the assembly so much harder. And then the next thing to think about would be, how do they do a stop pin on something like this? And on some integral knives, you'll see an extra pin somewhere that is the stop pin. And on this knife, it's hidden within this pivot. Let's see if we can find it. It's right, yeah, let's get this back. It's right there. Do you see that? Right there. And this is one of those like internal stop pins that travels through a smile-shaped arc. You can see it staying in place as I turn this. And so there's going to be a smile-shaped path in this blade. This is a Passaround group knife, so I'm not supposed to disassemble this. But if I were to take this pivot out, what you'll see is there's that post right there is just right there underneath this pivot collar. And I'm not sure how you would get it out. Like, it's probably a little bit of a compression fit, so you might have to kind of bang it or knock it. My gut would say that you would need to push the pivot all the way through just forcefully with an object, and then you'd be able to get more wiggle room to get it out. So this is not a particularly disassemblable knife. If this were my own personal knife, I would endeavor on that, because I'm ambitious enough and stupid enough that I would be willing to try that. I'm not going to do that on this because this is a Passaround knife, but honestly, I'm loving this. My gut reaction to this is that this is really, really nice. That flicks so well. And I was drawn to this enough that I might try to get one of these. Ooh, I don't love that. Yeah, I've had this complaint on a couple other knives. This edge right here, which is where the lock bar engages, the geometry of this and the way they made this so narrow means that it's right there. And it doesn't stick out proud and like visually, but you can scrape your finger against it. And I don't know, I mean, how often you'll ever be running your finger like that. I'm not really concerned about it. I would prefer if this were a little bit wider and this weren't scrapable right there. But as far as like the back, I mean, man, for carry, this one continuous piece like here, absolutely no opportunity to slide against the blade, and just, wow, this would carry so well. Oof. Yeah, bottom line is, I might end up actually trying to pick one of these up because I am so far thinking this is really freaking cool, and I'm just kind of blown away by how nice this action is. It's kind of hard to do it slow. Like sometimes you can slow roll these, and this isn't the easiest one. So this is definitely going to be like a flip opening knife. You can kind of just do that and not do super fast. But this is definitely more of a type knife. Woof. Okay. I think I'm going to cut it there. I talked so much in this that this is practically a full small detailsy review, but man. Also, I don't know if you noticed earlier, but I jabbed myself with this tip. It is very pointy, and you can see a tiny little jab mark right there. Wow. Okay, so I'm going to call that it for today, and thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.